Welcome to Lesson 4 in Module 7. So in this section, we're going to learn about linear functions or linear equations. You're going to see a lot of y equals mx plus b and things like that. I do have a couple quizzes lined up. I'll email you about those, but I think we'll have 2 quizzes in Chapter 7. Let me see if I can find. I think the first quiz was sections 1 through 3, and then the second quiz will be over lessons 4 through 7. So I'll tell you more about that in an email, but probably have 2 quizzes, Module 7 test final. So that will get us to the end. Okay, let's go ahead and pick up on this lesson. So a loan in the amount of $18,000 is going to be paid in equal payments each month. So in my head, because I know this section is on linear functions, I'm thinking, what is the starting point? 18,000. So I know that's going to be my B, right? Remember how B is the y-intercept, where we start? And then when it says paid, that tells me, oh, the balance is going to be going down. So I know the slope is going to be negative. So those are the things you should start thinking about as you read. Don't just read the problem and not pay attention. Think about the words they're using, the amounts they're giving you, and what they represent. So that's the starting place of the loan. So that's our y-intercept, 0, 18,000, because remember the y-intercept always has x0. And when they say paid, that tells me the balance is going down. So when something's going down, remember when a line falls from left to right, negative slope. And there are equal payments, so that makes it a line as long as they're equal. Because remember how we have a constant rate of change on lines, so it is important that they be equal. After 18 months, the amount of the loan is expected to be $12,600. So if you look here, you can see at 0 months, that means at the beginning, the amount of the loan was $18,000. After 18 months, the amount is $12,600. So now you can see where now we have 2 points. Now we'll be able to find the rate of change or the slope, how much they're paying each month, and so on. For bookkeeping purposes, the business uses linear depreciation. So that's just saying it's going to be a line. And because it's depreciation, that again is another word telling you the slope is negative. Let A be the amount of the loan. So that's important because we have to use the letters that they say. And make sure on Alex, you use the case they give you. If you use a small a when they tell you to use a capital A, they'll count the problem wrong. So make sure you pay attention to that. And T is the time in months. And notice it's a lowercase t, which is usually the case. The Y is usually uppercase, and the X of our equation is usually lowercase. Determine the independent variable and its meaning. So remember, we learned in Module 6 the independent variable is the X, and as I said, it's the one that's lowercase, and it always says as a function of time. That means T would be in parentheses. So they want us to determine it and its meaning. So you say T equals number of months. And you don't have to make up any of this when they ask you about variables. It will all be in the reading. So remember how I said you have to have 3 parts to every variable statement. What letter are you using? What is it? It's the number. What's the units? It's in months, not years, not weeks, but months. Determine the dependent variable, and we learned that is the y in Module 6 and its meaning. So A equals amount of loan left. So I just copy what the problem says. And so we've told what it is, but we haven't told the units. Here the units are months. What would be the units here? Dollars, right? So 3 parts. This is the number, the units, months, the letter we're using T. This is the variable. This is what it stands for. This is the unit. So every variable statement must have 3 parts, just like both of these. Determine the rate of change. Well, rate of change we know is slope, and it requires 2 points, and boom, there's our 2 points. So let's write those down. 0, 18,000, and 18, 12,600. So to find the rate of change, and remember rate of change needs a label. So if they just ask for slope, you can just find the slope. But when they want rate of change, that means it needs the y per x on it. So let's be sure and write that to remind ourselves that after we find the rate of change, we have to put the label. And that's why they make you do this first. So now you know what y per x is. Dollars per month. So second y, 12,600 minus the first y, 18,000 over second x, 18 minus the first x, 0. So now we'll get out our calculators, and you can see this is indeed going to be negative as we predicted because of the wording they use, paid, depreciation. That means something's going down, like when a car depreciates, its value is going down. So we have 12,600 minus 18,000. That gives us negative 5,400 over 18. And then to simplify that further, divided by 18, and we get negative 300. So tell me what you think that means. Our rate of change is negative 300. They are what? Paying $300 per month towards the loan, because we know it's y per x, dollars per month. Or the loan is going down or decreasing. The loan amount is decreasing by $300 per month. Remember, we don't use the negative in the sentence, but we do need the negative when we find rate of change. But you should understand what that negative means. That just means the balance is going down. So now, do you remember, this was like maybe last packet or maybe 2 packets ago, either lesson 3 or 2, I said, before you fill out the table, it's so much easier to write the equation. So let's do E and F, and then we'll come back to the table, because right away I saw write a linear function, which is the same thing as write an equation. Linear function just tells you to use function notation like A of t. Don't just write A equals. So write an equation is the same wording. So I just want you to know when you see that verbiage, it could say write a linear equation, write an equation, write a linear function. Those all 3 can be interchanged. So I saw that here, and I know having the equation will help me with the table. So first we need the vertical intercept. Remember, the vertical intercept is the y-intercept. Do we know that? We know the y-intercept is when x is 0. Do we know that? Boom, right there. So look at your table. X is 0, Y is 18,000. So we know the vertical intercept is 0, 18,000. And remember, sometimes on Alex, they don't want the point. They just want the number. So be sure if it doesn't let you put in parentheses, that means it doesn't want a point. That's how when I did the practice test before you guys did, I made the test and then I went through to see how much time it would take me. It did let me put the parentheses in. So I'm thinking, oh, all they want's the Y. That's maddening. But we know in real life you have to write it as a point, but if Alex doesn't let you write the parentheses, then that means it only wants the Y value, unfortunately. Like I said another time, I don't like that about this program, but I can't rewrite it at this point in time. So write the meaning in a complete sentence. So we know this is months. Remember, anytime you're asked to write a sentence, you first label your point, and we know this is the amount of loan. So instead of saying at 0 months, which we would never say in real life, we could say the original, because 0 months is original, or the, I don't know, original is good. The original amount of the loan was $18,000. So that would be the sentence here. The original amount of the loan is 18,000, or was, I don't know if that should be past tense or not. The original amount of the loan is 18,000, and make sure you label it with the dollar sign. So everything has to be labeled with its units. So now that we know B, the y-intercept, and now that we know M, the slope, aren't we ready to do this? Write the equation. Then once we get the equation, like I said, it's super easy to fill in the table. So in place of y, up here, I'm going to make this smaller so I don't have to keep going up and down. So up here we said that y was a. They want function notation. So that means a of t, because remember t is what is your x value in parentheses, and that's our x, equals, in place of m, we put negative 300. In place of x, we put whatever we have there in the parentheses. So that's going to be t, plus b is the starting point, as we discussed earlier in a different lesson. So what's the starting point? Oh, the loan originally was $18,000. So now I have an equation. Now it will be much easier to fill out the table. So we're going to put 6 in. Let's use a different color so it doesn't all. So we have to put 6 in, 12 in, 24 in, 30, and 36. So let's just write one out so we have a pattern. So a of 6 is negative 300 times 6, because this means everywhere you see a t, plug in 6. So negative 300 times 6 plus 18,000. So that way you know where these values came from. You don't just fill in your table and look back at it later and go, whoa, I wonder where I got those numbers from. So after 6 months, the loan is going to be negative 300 times 6 plus 18,000. And that's 16,200. Okay, so now we don't have to type it again. So we can hit our up arrow, change the 6 to 1, and then remember how I showed you that insert key, second insert, insert a 2. So now let's look at my problem, negative 300 times 12, and that is 14,400. And we'll pick up from there on the next video.